where the Fort Des Moines is located, it's kind of an older part of town that has not received much care and attention.
This part of the city has been neglected for many, many years.
All of society, all the city wrapped itself around the Fort Des Moines site and continued on.
Some of the buildings had been just emptied out of the furniture, but there were scattered military insignia, deployment plans, furniture, just abandoned.
Fort Des Moines was established in the early 1900s as a cavalry outpost. It's always had a rich history of diversity because it's one of the first cavalries to train the first black officers as a group for the United States Army. African Americans from all across the country came to be a part of that first officer training class. It included college graduates or college students who decided to answer the call because the leadership in the African American community at the time advocated for us to respond to the needs of our country in terms of coming and serving in the military. African Americans came from all across the country and they came and trained here in Iowa. 25 years later, Fort Des Moines was the place that they first trained the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps for World War II. Women from all walks of life, from all across the country, trained for the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps, and they changed their name later to the Women's Army Corps. They came here and they trained for different specialties to support the war effort.
Fort Des Moines is a location of this major first with African American training officers and then coming in with the WACs and having training for them as well. The site during World War II grew significantly to be able to house all the women that were coming in and all of the male soldiers that were coming in and being processed for the war. They had an increase of something like 150 buildings that were added to the site in what was called Boomtown.
Then after World War II, Fort Des Moines served as a place where returning soldiers ended up living. Veterans lived in the housing down here in the Fort Des Moines area. And then Fort Des Moines has continued military presence with the Army Reserve units, the Marine Corps, Navy Reserve units located here.
It's a rehabilitation and it's not a restoration, so it's understanding that buildings' use can change over time, but you want it to still be able to respect and reflect the history and to maintain those qualities which make it so significant.
So the design focused on inserting what's new into the historic. The focus was to not touch the historic so that we took away from it.
We try to keep all the newly built element as clean as possible, in a way as minimal as possible. So all the walls and doors are all white, and then we intentionally hid most of the light fixtures so they do not become distractions within the historic volume. I think in the end, this final design ended up allowing the historic elements to shine through, and the newly built elements sort of became the quiet and contrasting backdrop against these historic elements.
We focused on showing the difference between the new and the old, so we didn't draw away from the historic.
Just seeing these buildings come back to life, this is what we live for in our job. It's to see buildings that were vacant for so long be put back to use and to be loved by somebody else.
Walking into those buildings now and seeing what the architects and design team have done with them, and having seen what they were before, and now you walk in there and it's full of sunlight coming in through clear story windows that are no longer blocked up, and it's clean, and it's doors that open and lead into pleasant spaces. Yeah, it's great to see this place occupied.
So when you first walk in, the brick and the high ceilings and the white interior, the concrete floors are very modern, very urban, and set in a very rural area. I enjoy living in a historic place. It adds to the history and adds to the ambiance and my own history. I plan to make Fort Des Moines my home for a number of years.
These are wonderful pieces of history, and to use them in a very creative way to save that architecture was important,
And also the fact that programmatically that it was providing affordable housing in a neighborhood and an area that really needs more affordable housing. So high quality affordable housing in a strategic location that helps save historic buildings were just tremendous benefits of this project.
Nobody wants to have affordable housing in their backyard. So it's really how you take not only a historic property, but a national landmark, integrate sort of social housing into that history, into that fabric, and do it in a way that infuses those residences with that sense of history and really make that part of a community.